the situation. But we knew as people coming from South Colton that the kids from Roosevelt didn't want us there. We knew that the teachers didn't want us there.
Well, a lot of the teachers from Wilson transferred to Colton Junior High also.
But we had teachers from Roosevelt that we were taking classes in, and we knew that they didn't want us there. And then we knew that the community didn't want us there. Moms and dads from that area didn't want us there. So it was a hard academic year, Frank. Very, very difficult for me.
Now, did any of that continue in high school?
Well, in high school it was a little different because, you had.
It had always been integrated.
Yes, yeah. And then we had kids that were in the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade. And then the kids that were sophomores, juniors, and seniors pretty well integrated to the school. So they served as role models as to being able to adjust at the elementary school. And then we had kids. The high school. And then we had kids from Bloomington, Frank, that came to Colton High School. And they also had a tough time coming from Bloomington.
Well, that's right. Bloomington High School hadn't been built at that time.
Right.
So all the Bloomington kids had to graduate from Colton High School.
But at in trying out for football, freshman football, that was a wonderful experience because the coaches that we had, their only motivation was to win. And how do you win? Well, you get good ball players. So we were able to play and have a good team at our freshman team.
Mm-hmm.
And then we integrated not only Colton kids and South Colton kids, but also we integrated the Bloomington kids. I remember Ed Rollins was from Bloomington, big kid, fullback, and he was just a great football player. So anyway, we adjusted well to Colton High School.
Now, changing subjects, you grew up at a time when two wars affected South Colton very heavily. Mm-hmm. It affected the whole country, but what was the impact on South Colton?
It was well, first of all, the kids or the young men that went into World War II were born in the late 20s or the early 30s. And many of them did not graduate from high school. Many of them were drafted before they were able to graduate from high school. So we had a lot of our kids that were males that were born in the 30s that participated in World War II as soldiers. They were taken out of the Barrio, Frank. They were taken out of the Barrio. They were sent to training camps throughout the country. And at those training camps, they got 3 square meals. They got shoes. They got uniform. They got clothing, and they also got training in different vocations. So they got that training, and after they went through basic training, then they were sent to different bases, not only in the country but also overseas. So when they went overseas, Frank, they met kids from all over the U.S. So they became aware of something other than Colton, South Colton, and they became friends, and they were introduced to not only different people from different parts of our United States, but also different cultures from the different parts of our states, the southern states, the Midwestern states, the city states. And then they went to overseas. And when they went overseas, completely different place. Like Tom Cabrera, one of the soldiers from my neighborhood, around the corner from O Street on N Street, he went to France, and he was introduced to the French culture. And some of our guys that lived in the projects went to Italy. And lo and behold, when you have rest of recreation, where do you go? Well, you meet girls. And some of them met those girls and married them and brought them back to South Colton. So that was one of the things that, I think one of the positive things that happened, that it took our boys out of South Colton and introduced them to a different, not only vocational training, but also lifestyle and culture and language and everything
It
else.
opened their eyes.
It opened their eyes completely. So when they came back to Colton, Frank, they said, well, wait a minute. This is, we live in a segregated community, and that's not the way it is. We paid our dues. Therefore, we should be able to buy a house in North Colton. So that's when the movement started. In 1952 with Ralph Cervantes. Ralph wanted to buy a house near the junior high school across, just south of the junior high school. And they said, no, you can't buy. Well, why not? You're Mexican, you can't buy the house. But he went to court and he won his case, and he was the first one to buy a house in North Colton. And then along with, we interviewed in our project Sal Ayala, and he bought his house in 53, 54 also. He was a Navy person. And from then on, Frank, there was a construction boom that happened in the mid-50s. And we had new projects that were built in North Colton along Rancho Boulevard.
Rancho Avenue,
Yeah, Rancho Avenue.
around the junior high, really.
Yes.
Which was originally the main agricultural area of Colton. And,
Right.
And the orange groves were chopped down and turned into houses.
Yeah, then that area was known as the terrace area. So anyway, we had a lot of house building, so a lot of our veterans that not only fought in World War II, but also in the Korean conflict, because the Korean conflict was the early 50s, 51, 52, and they served their 2 years, came back in the mid-50s, and they were eligible to buy, with home loans, to buy housing. So many of them bought houses there on Rancho Boulevard. And then you had that big housing that was built north of Mill Street, huge housing area, and many of our veterans bought houses in that area. So that started the immigration, going from South Colton to North Colton. So that was one of the positive areas that happened with World War II. The other one was, Norton Air Force Base was built in San Bernardino, established in San Bernardino because of the war effort. And that provided a lot of military materials to the different bases that we had overseas. So after the war, many of our veterans, Mexican veterans, got jobs at Norton Air Force Base. So that, again, part of the training that they got, and also some of the benefits that they needed to be able, as veterans, to get jobs in that area. And then in the late 30s, Frank, and the early 40s, Kaiser Steel developed, and Kaiser Steel needed to manufacture steel for the war effort. So a lot of jobs opened in that area, Frank. So I don't know, maybe war was good. And I tell people that the best affirmative action that happened was World War II.
Followed by the Korean conflict.
But more so the World War II, that the best affirmative action that happened, because our kids were brought out of the Barrio. Our kids were provided with training, not only to be soldiers, but vocational training. And that also that war kind of, after our kids came back, it gave them a sense that I paid my dues. Therefore, I should be treated as a full American and not as a Mexican American, but I should be given those rights as a veteran to be able to do those things. I should be able to buy a house wherever I want. I should be able to work wherever I want. And I should be able to raise my kids and give my kids a good education because I paid my dues. So I tell people, Frank, that was the best affirmative action program that developed. And people say, well, a lot of people were killed during that war. I said, yeah, but freedom is not free. And therefore, our community, our Mexican community, benefit from that war.
Definitely. Now, you graduated from high school what year?
1958,
And then what did you do after graduating?
I went to the community college for 2 years, transferred to Cal State Los Angeles, and I graduated in '62 from Cal State, 4 years after high school graduation.
Now, what made you were successful academically in high school?
That's the irony. It's a different story. When I went to high school, you know, the bad experience at Colton Junior High School, the bad academic experience and also personal experience. I went to high school and I was placed in remedial classes. Okay, the English, the math, some of those remedial classes. And then I had a friend, Omar Sosa. Omar's family was very pro-education, and he had older sisters that went through Colton High School, and they prepared themselves to go to a university. So when Omar was there, Omar was taking college prep courses. And Frank, I didn't know what college prep courses was. So I asked him, Omar, how come you're not taking the same class that we're taking? Well, I'm going to go to college, so I'm taking college prep courses. You're kidding. Are they different from what we're taking? Yes, they're very different. These are college prep courses. So Frank, I started my college prep my sophomore year rather than my freshman year. And I had to make up all those college prep courses, sophomore, junior, and senior. And that's what happened in my case in getting prepared for college. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, Valley and then Cal State Los Angeles. Graduated from Cal State 4 years after high school in '62. And then at that time, Frank, the draft was still in effect. They were drafting you into the service. And if your number came up.
That was the Vietnam War.
That was prior to Vietnam.
Okay.
That was still, Vietnam was mid-'60s, but this was 58, 58 through 62. It's still eligible for the draft. So if your number came up, you were drafted, but if you were in college, you'd get a deferment.
Right, a 2S deferment.
So I got 5 deferments, Frank.
Oh.
The fifth deferment, they didn't, the fifth deferment was me becoming a teacher. So I got a deferment, and I said I was going to be a teacher, and so I got my teaching credential the fifth time. Now, so it was a good racket, Frank. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get the master's degree, and to get a deferment to get the master's degree in '63. And that didn't work, Frank. They said, no, you're not. You're coming into the Army. But at the same day that I got my notice into the Army, I was invited to go in the Peace Corps. So I went in the Peace Corps for a couple of years and finished my Peace Corps. I was going to stay in '65, and then after that got my master's at Cal State Los Angeles, and then got my doctorate degree in '73 from UCLA. Yeah, so that's the extent of my educational experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you must have had some jobs while you were in high school. And then after high school, while you were getting your education, you must have had jobs. What kind of work did you do?
Well, you know, I picked oranges. I picked berries. I picked berries and you know, just little things during the summer. One of my friends, Art Chavez, his mom organized a group of us to go pick berries in Bloomington. So we picked berries in Bloomington during the summer. And then I got a little older, 14 years old, and my dad thought it was a good idea for me to go pick oranges. And my uncle Alcadio, was an orange picker, and he said, "Yeah, I'll take you. You can work the bottom of the trees," and we were called ratas that we could get the bottom of the oranges at the bottom of the tree. So I did that with my uncle, and he taught me how to, you know, cut the fruit from the tree and how to carry a ladder and how to, you know, everything that I need to be a good orange picker. So I was a good orange picker. And then the following year, I was old enough to be able to do the orange picking by myself, and I didn't need my uncle. So I brought my little brother with me, and he was a rata, and we both worked together on that. And then after that, my friend Omar, I mentioned Omar Sosa, his father used to cut hair, so they had the hair clipping instruments, and my dad used to cut our hair, and we had the equipment also. So Omar said, well, if I cut your hair and you cut my hair, we won't charge each other. So, so we started cutting each other's hair, and then the neighborhood kids in my area found out that I cut hair. So I started cutting hair Saturday and Sunday, and I maybe cut 10 10 haircuts on weekends, and I charged 50 cents. So that was $5 right that I would make on the weekends. So I did that for the 4 years that I was in high school. I cut hair for the 4 years that I was in high school. And then after that, after graduating from high school, I worked at the gas station, Henry's gas station. Worked there for 4 years.
Where was that?
On La Cadena, between La Cadena and M and N Street, on the east side of the street. And I worked there for 4 years.
Is that building still there?
It's still there, it's still there. It's kind of a auto repair shop, but it's still there, still operating. Henry's no longer there. Henry retired a long time ago. But I worked there for 4 years, and that paid for my education, Valley College, Cal State, and yeah, for my 4 years of education. Well, I was working there. The last time I think I left the job in '62 when I was finishing up at Cal State Los Angeles. And then after that, Peace Corps, and then after that, teaching. So, and then the last 40 years I worked at Valley College for a couple of years as a counselor, and then I worked at Cal State for about 40 years. My title was Associate Dean of Undergraduate Studies, and also part Assistant Professor of Education. So that's the extent of my work experience. And like I said, I just graduated. I'm just retired 3 years ago.
No, a pretty important thing happened to you in the Peace Corps.
In the Peace Corps, Lily and I met at Cal State Los Angeles in '62, and then, like I said, I went in the Peace Corps, and then Lily also went in the Peace Corps. I went to Colombia, South America, and Lily went to Peru, South America. And after I was through in '65 with my mission, then I thought I could transfer to Peru and work there until Lily got through with her mission. But Peace Corps didn't think it was a good idea. So I said, well, let's get married. So we got married in South America, Colombia, South America, on June 13, 1965. And then we traveled through Central America, Mexico. And in Mexico, it was the first time that Lily had a travel in Mexico, and she discovered that what a wonderful culture, what a wonderful, history, what a wonderful everything about Mexico. So we became both very, very enlightened and very proud that we had our roots in the Mexican culture.
That's outstanding. Okay, now tell me a little bit about your community involvement and in social issues.
Well, the Peace Corps did a wonderful job in training me to do a lot of volunteer. So when Lily and I came back to Colton, we both got teaching positions with the Rialto Unified School District, and then we thought it'd be a good idea to start a scholarship. So we started a scholarship in Colton, and we did that for about 5 years. We collected funds. We had a fundraiser at the Vanaken home. They had a wonderful place for barbecues. So we started having our fundraisers there, and then from there, things just develop. That you become involved in different activities in the community. So that's what happened to both of us. We became very, very involved with community activities. And then I ran for school board in 1978, and I was elected in 1978, but unfortunately in 81 I got sick. I got the flu, and then the flu introduced the virus to the body, and the virus paralyzed me from the neck down, and I became a quadriplegic. But it still didn't stop me from being active in the community. Um, in 80, that was 80. I got out of the hospital in 83. In 83, and then I met some educators, led by Susan Vargas, and you were one of them, and Henry was one of them, and Bill Ellison was one of them, and you introduced me to a project called Future Leaders.
That you said was the best thing since frijoles and tortillas.
Yeah, that project was the best thing, tortillas and frijoles, and we started in 1984. Our purpose, we saw the high dropout rate that we had of our Latino kids in our community. The dropout rate was 54%. And then we looked at the college going rate, and the college going rate was only about 15% or 16%. So we thought, let's start a leadership program where we involved 8th and 9th grade students and teach them leadership skills, but also teach them to be actively involved in their high school, and also take the A through G requirements that would prepare them for high school. We started with 96 kids in 1985, and then to date, Frank, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary, and we've had over 3,800 students that have come through our project. And the results of what you guys started was that we have done a survey of the kids that participate in our program, a 4-year service, 4 years after they've been with us, and we found that 99% of the kids that participate in our program graduate from high school, versus the terrible dropout rate that we had back then of 54% for kids that don't participate in our project. And then the college going rate, Frank, for our kids that participate in our program is 90%, versus the college going rate of maybe 20% now, 25% now. And then recently, we just had an election a couple of days ago, 2-3 days ago, this